Well, hi there everyone and welcome. I'm Kareth. I'm so glad you stopped by my channel. I like to create recipes for meals in jars using freeze-dried ingredients, and I sometimes challenge myself to try things that you wouldn't necessarily think would be a possibility as a meal in a jar. The last one I did like that was a skillet pizza, a supreme pizza. Now that was super fun to do. I'll link that one below. But today's recipe is for a stovetop lasagna. I'd kind of steered away from this type of recipe previously just because Thrive Life doesn't make freeze-dried ricotta cheese. I don't have my own freeze dryer, and my mom's recipe calls for ricotta, so I thought, well, that's out. But Drew and I tried this new pasta place down the road, and they actually specialize in lasagna, and theirs didn't have ricotta in it. They used instead a bechamel sauce. And well, guess what? Thrive Life has a bechamel sauce. And so I know Thrive is a lot of times they're out of stock of that, but I've got a copycat recipe of it on my channel. I'll link to that below as well. Anyway, so let me show you how I made this. You will need some of those oven-ready pasta sheets to store next to your jars. All right, if you're going to do this entire thing with freeze-dried ingredients, you're going to need 2 jars. You'll need a quart jar and a pint-sized jar. But if you want to use like fresh mozzarella cheese or just store-bought freshly grated mozzarella, you do not need the second jar, that pint-sized jar. I like to put my meat in the blender because I like the texture better, but it's just a texture thing for this recipe. If you don't mind the texture of the pellets that the beef and the sausage comes in, then you do not have to blend this. I pulsed it in the blender to get it smaller, but that's not necessary. Sometimes I say you need to do that in order for it to refresh in time, but that's not the case this time. You can do whichever one you prefer. Now I like some chunks of tomato in my marinara sauce, so I added some tomatoes, but the mushrooms and the zucchini, that's just extra, just bonus veggies that I like to put in my meat sauce. Those are optional. Now, you definitely want to keep your bechamel sauce separate, and so that's what I'm doing here. The bechamel needs to cook separately, and then it's layered in the lasagna, so you do have to put it in a baggie to keep it separate. And I do like to add a little bit of nutmeg to my bechamel sauce. I learned from watching the Food Network years ago that nutmeg and cream pair very nicely with one another. You know, now that I've made this a couple of times, I think I might change my mind on this part of it. I'll tell you why. So I'm putting half a cup of our tomato sauce into a baggie, and I'm kind of keeping that separate. I don't know that you actually need to do that step. I think next time what I'll do is I'll put that half a cup of tomato sauce, that's Thrive Life tomato sauce, in with the meat mixture, because I don't think you need to keep it separate. I was wanting to kind of saute that meat and get a little bit of flavor going on that and then add the tomato sauce to it. But now that I've made it, I don't think that it made that much of a difference, and it just caused extra work. So anyway, it's up to you. You can either keep it separate like I'm doing in the video, or you can add the tomato sauce to the meat mixture. Now here's the jar of cheese. So that's what I meant. If you're not going to use freeze-dried cheese here, you can just eliminate that second jar and remind yourself to make sure you have mozzarella cheese in the fridge when you want to make this. Here is what you could store on your pantry shelf. I just think those layers are really pretty in that quart jar. That's just a really nice looking jar there. But don't forget, you are going to have a box of that oven-ready lasagna or pasta sheets to store alongside your jars. And be sure to check the expiration date on your oven-ready lasagna sheets. Mine had an expiration date of 6 months out. So I'm going to put a note on the lid of my jar and make sure that I use it by that date. So look at all the stuff you have to get out in order to make this. So yeah, I'm not attempting this on a weeknight. This is going to take quite a bit of time to put together, and there's lots of dishes that get dirty, okay? A large skillet, at least a medium-sized saucepan, and a couple of containers. If you're using freeze-dried cheese, go ahead and get that going first so it will have enough time to refresh. Now, I added 2/3 of a cup of water, and that was too much, so don't do that. You only need probably about half a cup of water to refresh that amount of cheese. And then you can just set that to the side. So you'll open up the quart-sized jar and then remove the bag or the bags if you have the tomato sauce separate. You'll prepare those in a minute. Go ahead and empty the contents of the jar into the large skillet. So that's the meat and the vegetables. It needs about 1.5 to 2 cups of water. Now, if you are including the tomato sauce in there with it, then it needs 2 cups of water on its own. So you'll add about 4 cups of water if that's the case. And I had kept mine separate, so I'm adding it to 2 cups of water and giving it a really good stir. Thrive Life tomato sauce is really delicious. It already has the Italian seasonings in it, and I really like the flavor of it. Bring that to a boil. Meanwhile, you can get your bechamel sauce started. Just put that into a medium-sized pot and then add 2 cups of water to that. And then whisk that to combine. And bechamel sauce is just a white cream sauce, and it's so good. Meanwhile, I just stirred my meat mixture to make sure it was refreshing really nicely. And I kind of just went back and forth between the bechamel and the meat sauce. Okay, I checked on my mozzarella and see, it's just too wet. I put too much water in there. It's a little bit gloopy or something. Yeah, that was just too much water. Okay, this is when I thought, yeah, my meat is ready for the tomato sauce to be added to it. And I was about to do that, and I realized, oh dear, my bechamel sauce is like vigorously bubbling, and it kind of jumped out of the pan. So yeah, just keep an eye on that. It doesn't take very long for it to get thick and ready, and then just remove it from the heat. All right, so I added my tomato sauce to the meat mixture. And then I just stirred to combine and let that go on kind of a medium-low heat until it got to the right consistency. All right, give your bechamel a taste. I thought mine needed a little bit of something extra, so I added some garlic powder, and I think I add some salt too. I misplaced my whisk or something. I don't know why I have a different spatula in there. And then I added a little bit of oregano. The bechamel sauce that I used in this video is actually the Thrive Life brand, and it tastes just a little bit different than my homemade version, and I had to add a little bit of seasoning to it. As I was heating that meat sauce, it kind of tended to jump out of the pan at me, and I didn't want to get my stovetop any dirtier than it already was. So I do like that screen. Be sure to taste your sauces and feel free to adjust. I thought mine needed some salt, and you can add more Italian seasoning to that. The Thrive Life tomato sauce already has some in there. It's a really nice flavor. But yeah, be sure to give these things a taste and make all the adjustments you want to make. When it gets to this consistency, that's far enough. You don't want to dry out this sauce too much, because when you layer in the pasta sheets, they actually need the moisture from the sauces to cook. So don't get it too dry. Get out all of your ingredients and get ready to start layering. I'm going to go ahead and do this as a stovetop or a skillet lasagna. I have a couple of subscribers that really don't use an oven to do most of their cooking. So I wanted to go ahead and show you how to do this on the stovetop. Of course, you could put this in a casserole dish, or if you use a stainless steel skillet like I do, it's oven safe. So you could just layer this and put this in the oven if you prefer. But I love doing it on the stovetop. It cooks up beautifully and it doesn't take as long because your pan is already hot and your ingredients are already hot, and I think it's just easier to do. As you layer in your pasta sheets, just make sure they have good contact with the sauce so they'll cook properly. Here comes that bechamel sauce. My mom's recipe would have called for a layer of ricotta cheese right here instead. She would put eggs and some seasonings in the ricotta mixture and layer that in. But this bechamel sauce takes the place of that. And even though it's different, it has a different flavor. It is wonderful and it's so creamy. This lasagna has a different flavor than my mom's, but it's absolutely delicious. And I like it just as much, if not more, than my mom's recipe because of the bechamel sauce. I really think y'all should give this a try. I wanted to use up all of the pasta sheets that I could to get as many layers as possible in there. So I think at some point I change up the order to get some more pasta sheets in. But anyway, you layer it however you want to layer it. This is just what I ended up doing because I kind of wanted to end the whole process with bechamel and mozzarella. But that's up to you. Just so your lasagna noodles have contact with some sort of sauce on one side or the other, it should work out fine. Yeah, I put a little bit of extra Parmesan cheese on the very top. I had some of that in my refrigerator. And then just a sprinkling of oregano, then it's perfect. It's ready to cook. If you're going to do the stovetop version, you need to put a lid on there and bring it up to a simmer over medium heat. Once you see that your lasagna has started to simmer, it'll kind of bubble around the edges. Then put your lid back on, lower your heat down to probably a 2 out of 10, like a medium low. And it needs to cook for 15 to 17 minutes. And don't lift the lid, just let it go. At the end of that time, your lasagna will be done. Okay, see, that is done. The cheese is melted and the pasta is cooked through. Everything is nice and tender and hot. Now, because I'm going to take pictures, I wanted to broil it for a little bit to get a little bit of browning on the top and to get it kind of ready for some pictures. So I went ahead and stuck it in under the broiler for 5 minutes. It turned out beautiful. This is the hardest part. You have to let this rest. It's like a regular lasagna. It needs to set up. Put a lid on there, some aluminum foil, something, cover it, and leave it alone for probably 20 to 30 minutes. I let mine sit for 30 minutes. If you want the layers, then wait. You can slice that and enjoy it. I served this with a little side salad and some garlic bread. It was fantastic. Yeah, I really enjoyed eating this. To be honest, I wasn't sure that I was going to even publish this video that I had filmed just because there's a lot of dishes that get dirty. It's a rather involved process. It's not difficult. It's just there's a lot more to it than my regular meals in jars. What I usually bring to y'all is kind of like dump this in a pot, put some water, simmer it for 20 minutes, and then you have dinner. This is a lot more complicated than that, and I just didn't know if I was going to actually bring it to you. But after I tasted it, I thought, absolutely, there's going to be somebody out there who wants to know that they can make a legitimate lasagna out of their food stores. And I want to show you that it can be done. I will include the full recipe in the video description box below, as well as my shopping link. If there are any of these Thrive Life ingredients that you see featured in my videos that you think, yeah, I want to get some of that, then please click on my shopping link. I'm a consultant with Thrive Life, and anything you purchase through my website, I receive a small commission on that, but it's at no extra cost to you. Most of the ingredients that Thrive Life sells, it has a 25-year shelf life. So that's just incredible, especially with inflation the way it is. I mean, if you can buy tomorrow's food at today's prices, then I think it's a good idea. Right now, Thrive Life is available in the USA and in Canada, and you order online, but then the groceries are delivered straight to your door. So it's pretty cool. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you. Be sure to leave me a comment down below and let me know what you think. All right, y'all, be blessed. And until next time, y'all, take care and keep thriving.